Hello and welcome to another one of my past paper tutorials walkthroughs. So today I'm going to go over the 2020 past paper for the OCR GCSE Computer Science. And yes, it's from November 2020. But before I do, please remember to click that like and subscribe button and click that notifications bell, especially if you enjoy these videos, and I will get right into it. So I'm not going to go through the la-di-da on the front page because the invigilator will read that. And yes, unfortunately, you're not allowed to use a calculator in paper 1. So not allowed to use a calculator in paper 1. Yes, and you'll be taught to enter your centre number, which is your school's number. Candidate number, that's your number. And yes, some people don't always follow this advice. Read each question carefully before you start your answer. So don't just go in all guns blazing. Read the goddamn question first before you put pen to paper. And yes, the mark is out of 80. Let's go on to the first question, shall we? Data in computers is valuable and at risk of loss, damage, or being taken. The table has 4 of those potential threats to data, and there are many more. So we need to write one prevention method for each threat in the table. Each one has to be different. So, for example, unauthorized access to a computer and phishing and viruses. Prevention method for all 3 will be a firewall, but you can only mention firewall once. Okay? So we would have to think about alternatives. So firewall can only be mentioned once. So if I was to say choose to mention firewall here, I'm not going to be able to mention it again. So firewall's one prevention method. For a virus, we could have firewall, but we've already mentioned it, so we're not going to say it again. So what we can have is antivirus. It's antivirus, or we could say anti-malware, one of the two. Or another way would be network restriction, so not allowing. So it might be not allowing users to download software, for instance, or just download any old attachment because it could have a virus or Trojan or a worm attached to it. The threat, and then the next threat is phishing. So phishing is basically like a scam email that poses a legitimate one. We could say firewall, but again, we've mentioned it already, so we're not mentioning it again. So easy way to do it would be education is a good one. So I would say education about phishing and how to avoid it, because that's going to be important, especially with a lot of scammers on the loose. So think of ourselves, so think of us, computer science specialists, as your very own online interceptors. And I don't just mean police interceptors. So think of us as like the interceptors, where we're going after the baddies. Okay. So phishing, you could educate people about it, and we could educate on how can we actually avoid it. So it might be, don't just click on a scam email, delete it, or ask someone to check it, see if it is a scam. Or try and look for clues on how it's a scam, like a dodgy email address maybe, or the fact that they will ask you for your bank account details, which your bank will never, ever, ever do. They will never ask for it by email. Okay? Then the last threat we got is data interception. So the easy one is going to be encryption. Why encryption? Because that is where we're going to scramble data. So it's unreadable. And the only person who can read it is somebody with a decryption key. They can just unlock it and wham. Ooh, I can read it. So that is question 1A. Done. Part B. So we need to name 2 other threats to the data of the computer system and give a method of prevention for each. So we can't just mention the threats already mentioned in the previous question. So other threats would be SQL injection. So we're using bolting on SQL code onto a system to get our password or usernames. And how we can prevent that, we can have a suitable validation. So when you sign up to websites, you have to validate basically you've got data validation. Now say like, right, your password, for example, has to have 8 characters and 8 characters, no less. In those 8, you've got to have a number, symbol, capital letter, lower letter, for instance. Threat 2, that you can have social engineering. That's a threat, and the way we can prevent that is training. So to prevent social engineering, social engineering is where people are basically manipulated into giving away sensitive information. The way we can prevent that would be training people so that they're aware of what social engineering is and the ways in which people will actually try and do it. Okay? So that would be 4 marks in a bag. Right. We got number 2. So we got a diagram of a network. So we got the main devices in the diagram. So what we need is a choice and a justification. So and that's a 3 marker. So 1 mark for the choice, 2 for the justification. So state whether Hope's network is a LAN or a WAN. Well, it's going to be a LAN. And the reason why it's going to be a LAN, because a LAN network is in a small geographical area. So someone's house is a small geographical area. And in that small geographical area, that homeowner, like Hope, is going to own all of the hardware. And she's not going to need any of the outside hardware. Okay? B. Devices on the network do not currently have internet access. So we need to identify 1 device she can use to connect the home to the internet. And that device is going to be a router. Because a router, that will connect 1 or more 2 LANs together. And you can connect your LAN to the internet. So that's what a router will do. Part C. Network has got 1 wireless access point in the kitchen that transmits data on the 5G, on the 5 giga, I believe that's meant to be gigahertz, 5G frequency. So 5 gigahertz frequency, sorry. So a network has 1 wireless access point in the kitchen, transmits data on the 5 gigahertz frequency. When the laptop is in the kitchen, it's got a better network performance. So why has it got a better performance? Why is it lower in the bedroom? Well, if we have a look, so we're looking for the laptop. So the laptop performs better here than it does up here in the bedroom, is because the Wi-Fi signal in the bedroom is going to be weaker. And the reason why it's going to be weaker, because 5 gigahertz is a short range as well. And not only that, you have to go through the floor. So that's your floor. So we're going from the kitchen to the floor to the bedroom. So that's why it's weaker. Okay? So if it was in the kitchen, then it's going to be stronger because it's got no floors, no walls to go through. And then we need to state 2 ways in which Hope could improve the wireless network in the bedroom. So she could in here have a signal booster in the office, signal booster in the bedroom, booster in the lounge, and a booster. So she could have a booster in those 3 rooms as well. Or what she could do is she could also, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 devices. She could reduce, say, 2 tablets. So she could get rid of the 2 tablets off the Wi-Fi. So that should make the connection with the laptop stronger. Or you could change it from 5 gigahertz to 2.4 gigahertz. Okay? And then we need to explain why Hope's network uses a peer-to-peer model and not a client server. So peer-to-peer, it's decentralized. So when it means decentralized, you're not going to have one server. Whereas a client server, you would need it. So with peer-to-peer, computers, they're independent. They can do their own thing. They don't require one central device. And we can connect computers directly to each other. We haven't got to connect it all to one server, and it doesn't have to go through one server to another computer. Or we could also have something like computers will have their own files. So there's not going to be one center for storing everything. Okay. So some of Hope's files are stored in the cloud, so we need to describe the benefits and the drawbacks of it using them. So we could access files from any device, from anywhere. So not just in the home. So she can access it from any device in the home. If she were to take a laptop out, she could access it there as well. And she can pay for auto backups. And don't forget this is a 6 marker. And when it comes to cloud, it can be free of cost. Like take Google Drive. You can get 15 gigabytes free. And once you reach that limit, you can buy more storage for X amount a month. And Microsoft OneDrive does the same, something similar, but it probably might give you more gigabytes or less. But they'll give you a set amount of free storage. Once you reach that capacity, then you can pay for more. But the problems are, you have to have internet access. Otherwise, you're screwed. And there is a subscription. So you got to pay like every month. So that could cost more in the long term than actually buying the actual hardware. So I bought a gaming laptop for 1 terabyte of storage because I wanted a 1 terabyte of storage. Get it done, buy it once, done. Rather than do all the subscriptions on the cloud. And you have to be careful what you put up on there. Because cloud storage, your stuff could get hacked. And there's going to be issues on who actually owns the data. And if you forget your login details, you might not have any access to those files. Okay, question 3. Draw one line from each part of the processor to the current definition. Nice and easy. So, control unit, that sends signals to direct operations. The cache is a high-speed memory inside the processor that will store recently used instructions. ALU will perform numerical calculations, so that goes up here. And the register is a tiny memory location inside the CPU that will hold one instruction at a time. There's your 4 marks right in the bag. Just remember the definitions with the parts of the processor. That should pose no problems if you know the definitions. Okay, so this is a harder one. So let's say we've got a medical researcher trying to find a cure for a disease. he's got a team of hundreds of people carrying out the medical testing. So recent developments in AI, artificial intelligence, means that a computer program could do the work of dozens of researchers in a shorter time. So he decides to increase his use of AI. So we need to discuss the issues surrounding this decision. So we've got ideas we can consider. Ethical issues, legal stuff, so legal issues, and cultural. So this sort of question is where we've got to make a plan on how we're going to do it. So, how are we going to actually structure this together? So this is what we could say. So one example, there are a number of ethical issues in relation to using AI in a medical field. So if we replace people with machines, that's going to remove the human element in relation to patient care. Because a robot may not, AI system, they're not exactly going to have feelings in the same way a human's going to have feelings. And that empathy and that compassion. The AI machine is just going to do what it's told. Whereas a human will do what it's told, but they will show that empathy, that compassion. And loss of jobs is a big issue. So loss of jobs means the local community is going to suffer. But with the AI system, the work will be completed faster, and it may also find a cure faster and make more reliable calculations, as well as saving lives. As well as that, there are some legal issues. There's some legal issues too. So AI is more secure than people. Seeing personal data. That data may be at risk if it isn't backed up. Which means there is potential for the AI system to breach GDPR. GDPR and the Data Protection Act of 2018. Yep, and it may be at risk to threats such as hackers. There is also the consideration whereby it will be harder to determine who is responsible for an error were it to occur. So that would be a big one. And then I would say there are some cultural issues as well. One big one is the removal of people from the workforce. That's going to be a big one. Change in demand for skills, going from professional, from medicine to needing to program these AI systems and to maintain them should anything happen to them. Yep, should anything happen to them, there is a need. So in other words, there is a need for people to manage the hardware and the software instead of medical expertise. In addition, the specific skills required for the medical profession may actually be lost. So those are just some of the issues in which you could talk about. So this is indicative. So the more of these you can mention, the better. So the more of these issues you mention, the closer you are going to be with these 8 marks. This question is not going to just be about just write the bullet points. It's going to want that thorough knowledge and understanding of a wide range of considerations and making sure the material is detailed and accurate. So this is just like a little overview, which will obviously need some more detail. Okay? So that is what it needs. And then what you might want to say in terms of hacking, there you might want to add like a legal issue. So another legal issue could actually be misuse. So another legal issue could potentially be computer misuse, whereby a professional may use the data generated by AI in a malicious way, which will contravene the Computer Misuse Act of 1990. So I'm adding a little bit more to this. Okay? So the more of this you can add in this context, the better. Okay? Let's go on to the next one. So this is a fill in the blanks. So, Ali's tablet has an operating system. So we need to complete the following description of the functions of an operating system by selecting the appropriate missing words from those in the box. So we've got all these words, but we only need to fill in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words, or 8. So the operating system provides a user interface. Yes, it does. This displays the output from the user and will allow them to interact with the hardware. Yes, that's what an operating system does. Allows us to interact with the hardware at a basic level. Operating system controls the movement of data from secondary storage to RAM and vice versa. That's memory management. The operating system can perform one process at one time, but by managing the memory, the computer can appear to be completing more than one process at a time, which is called multitasking. So an operating system will allow device drivers to be installed to allow an external piece of hardware to actually interact with the processor. They won't accept CPU because that's not an option in there, so you'd have to say processor. So you have to use the words that they give you. So if you say CPU, that's wrong. If you say processor, that'll be right because that's what they've given you. It's been installed to allow an external piece of information to interact with the processor. The operating system provides security through user accounts and passwords. It also creates and maintains a file system to organize files and directories. So I've used all the words in here that they've given you, or 8 out of all those words that they give you. Okay? If I was to say here, like for example, secondary storage to memory, let's have a look and see if memory's in there. No, it's not. So you wouldn't get a mark. So you have to use what they give you. Okay? Okay, so now we got defragmentation. So Ali runs defragmentation analysis on his magnetic hard disk. Parts of the results are shown, so we need to explain how defragmentation will change how the files and free space are arranged on Ali's hard disk. So what it's going to do, it's going to collate the free spaces together, so bringing them all together. And then what that's going to do, all the file 1 stuff is going to be stored consecutively, and that's going to be followed by file 2, which will be stored consecutively. And that's okay. Then also there'll be file 3, that'll be done consecutively as well, and those file fragments will be collated together. Okay? So there's nothing really more than that. But if you want to do in a diagram, that's also fine. But don't just say gives more free storage space. After defragmentation, Ali's computer is able to access a file faster. So we need to explain why Ali's computer can access the files faster after defragmentation. Because when one page, so what happens here? So this is what you could say. When one page is read, it won't have to search for a second page. And it won't have to move as far to get to the next part of the file. And the less physical movement will save time. So I've mentioned 3 points, but I would only get 2 marks. So I don't actually need that point. I could just have those 2 points, and that's 2 marks. Next one, nice and easy. Give 3 additional examples of utility programs: encryption, defragmentation, which they won't have. So I could say encryption, nice and easy, compression, and I'll say firewall. So easy ones so think of the first ones that come to mind. I would say encryption, backup, firewall, done. Part C, a little bit of pseudocode territory. Sorry guys. Yep, it always comes up. Always. So, for part C, Ali's computer uses virtual memory. So that's the illusion of RAM. So he's written 2 procedures to help himself understand how virtual memory works. Store data describes how data is stored in the RAM, and access data is how it's read from it. So we need to write the letter of the missing statements from the table in the correct place to complete the algorithms. And this is the table where we need to use all of these. Okay, so we're writing the letter. Okay, to complete the algorithms. Not all statements are used, but you have to use the statements that they give you. So, for example, if RAM is, so you could say full, or you could say C. So you could use the letter C, or you could say the word full. I'm going to use a statement because it makes more sense. Because it makes a lot more sense than just saying if RAM is C, then move data from RAM to A. If it's full, then you would move the RAM to secondary storage, which makes far more sense. And then store data in the next free space in the RAM. So we're going to store it there we go. So we're going to store it in the RAM. And then here, where you've got procedure, store data, you would use end procedure, which indicates the end of the subprogram. So that's the store data. Now we need to do the access data. So if something is required as in the RAM, so if something data is required, you could say B, but I'm not going to say that. So I'm going to say if. So that's a condition. So if the data isn't required in the RAM is full. So we move all the unneeded data to the hard disk drive. And then we move the required data from the hard drive to the RAM. And then the file is going to be read from B, which is it's going to be read from H, but I'm not going to say H. I'm going to say RAM because you are allowed to say it. Do it. And the reason why I've said RAM, not end procedure RAM, secondary storage and full, rather than these respective letters, is like I said, because using the statements makes more sense. I think it makes more sense. Okay. Okay, so Ali's tablet computer also has ROM. So what's the purpose of ROM? The ROM will store the basic input-output system, which is abbreviated as BIOS. And then it's going to store the data that should never be changed. So we just leave it alone. And then last part of question 5. Ali thinks the tablet is an embedded system. State whether this is correct or incorrect and justify your choice. So it doesn't matter which one. So if you say correct or incorrect, that's going to be 1 mark. As it's a tablet, I would argue that it's incorrect. The reason why I would argue that it's incorrect is because embedded systems have one or very few specific functions. Very few specific functions, whereas tablets will typically have multiple functions. That would be my answer. You can argue that it's correct because the tablet may only be able to perform a small number of tasks and the tablet's hardware is going to be fixed. So you could argue that it's correct, but my argument would be incorrect in this case. Okay, Ali's tablet computer has 100 gigabytes of secondary storage. There's currently 80 of that available, so Ali wants to transfer a series of video clips onto his tablet. Each video is 200,000 kilobytes. So we need to calculate the estimated number of video clips Ali can fit onto his tablet. So we've got to show our work because this is a 4 marker. So let's look at our numbers they give you. So you got 100, 80, 200,000. What do we do from here? So you could do 200,000 divided by 1,000. Okay? So that is going to be 200. So 200 divided by 1,000. That is going to be, so 200 divided by 1,000. That is going to be 0.2. So that's going to be 0.2. So we've got, so that's going to be 0.2. So we could have potentially so that is going to give us 8 gigabytes, 80 times 5 which is going to be 80. So 80 times 5. So 200,000. So that's going to be 400 videos. So it's essentially 0.2, which is 2,000. So if you wanted to do that, so you could say 2,000. So I would do 2,000 divided by 100 times by 0.2, which is going to give you 400. So the number of video clips that Ali can fit will be 400 videos. That's method 1 for 4 marks. Method 2, you could do 80 gigabytes. It's going to equal 80,000 megabytes. So you need 80,000 megabytes. It's going to equal 8. That is going to be 80 million kilobytes. So we've got 80 million divided by 2 million. That's going to give you 400 videos nonetheless. So it doesn't matter which method you use, but this would be my preferred method. So I mean, my preferred method. So 200,000 divided by 1,000 is 200. That divided by 1,000 is 0.2. So that would be 2,000. So that divided by 100 times by 0.2, that's going to be 400 videos. So you literally need to use, I would use percentages like you would in your maths lessons. Okay? And that's that. Okay, question number 6. Final one. Naomi's office has 5 computers connected to a LAN. There's 1 printer that all devices can print to. LAN is set up as a mesh. So a mesh is basically going to connect everything together. So we need to draw connections to show that they could be connected, how they could be connected using a mesh. So it's going to be that, 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 that. So I'm trying to connect all of these together. So it's literally using all of the computers together. Okay, so that's literally it. So we've got to connect all the devices to at least one component or through another device, and not only through the printer. So it's me connecting all of the devices together. That's a mesh. That's a mesh network. Okay. B. The Ethernet cables are used within the office building. So you're going to tick one box in each row to identify if the statement about Ethernet is true or false. Ethernet is a protocol? Yes, it is. Uses wireless data transmission? No, it does not. Ethernet can transmit speeds at up to 100 gigabits per second? Yes, it can. Ethernet is a protocol within a TCP/IP stack? Yes, it is. Nice and easy. Ethernet is a protocol. It's able to transmit data at speeds of up to 100 gigabits per second, and it's a protocol within the TCP/IP stack. The only thing wrong is using wireless data transmission, which it doesn't. Ethernet is a cable, which we can connect to a computer, which will allow our computer to connect to the actual network of an organization. 2 more. Computer 1 enters the URL ocr.org.uk Yeah, very inventive of OCR. Not. It's then converted into the IP address of the web server that hosts the website. So we need to explain how the URL is converted into an IP address. So go from URL to IP address. URL will get sent to the domain name system, which will then look up the IP in its database. And then what it's going to do, the DNS returns the IP address. However, if it's not found, the DNS will send to a higher level DNS and it will keep going higher, and if they still can't find it, you're screwed, you can't find it. Okay? And then the last one, very last one, the website request is sent using packet switching. Each packet has a header. State 3 items of data that will be contained in a packet header. So you're going to have a destination IP address and the sender IP address. And you're going to have the packet number. Those are the three things that you could have. You could also have packet size, how many packets there are, and error detection methods that are used. Okay? So that is a walkthrough of the OCR GCSE Computer Science OCR spec from November 2020. Okay? So if you like this video, please remember to click that like and subscribe button and click that notifications bell. And please remember to make a comment down below in the video in the description. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Good luck. And thank you very much, and goodbye for now. So please be sure to hit that like. And please also remember to hit that subscribe button. And another way to subscribe is to just click on this link, which is below each video I place. And if you like my content and you want to find out more about what I do, I've also got an online course called Introduction to Computer Systems on the Udemy website. So you just need to click on it. And there we go. So this is my online course, Introduction to Computer Systems. So this is the landing page for that course. So in it, you will learn. So these are some of the things we'll learn, like explaining the role of the central processing unit, describe the components of the CPU, provide an introduction to assembly language, which is low-level programming, explain the factors that affect the performance of the central processing unit, and I've also put in another bit that I'm interested in, the physics of overclocking the CPU, which made me develop an interest in electronics and also physics. So there's a lot more to it than even we realized. So this is the course content. So you've got computer systems, so I'm introducing you to it. Then I'm going into the different forms of architecture and assembly language. Then I'm going into the factors that affect it and the physics of overclocking the CPU. And then I'm going into logic, so combinational logic systems, making the logic gates, sequential logic systems, semiconductors. Then I go into all things binary, where we introduce you to number systems, all the way down to doing binary and sound, images and text. And then finally we got input and output devices and the different forms of storage, so that's where memory will come in. And then my assessment is basically one big quiz of 30 questions. So you don't need any knowledge to do this course. All you need is a computer with stable internet connection. So that's all you really need there. And why you should do the course? Well, wherever I don't know, I'll go out and learn it. So the way my brain is wired is I'm on the autism spectrum. So it will be an asset in helping you get through the online courses that we provide. So we understand how to explain things in simple terms due to my teaching background. So you could think of us as real-life version of, say, a Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory, minus the rudeness, or a C-3PO, but without the glitches. So, I'm on the autism spectrum, so we're on the autism spectrum and have a rough idea on how to talk to them and relate to them. And my teaching style is that style I've crafted, and one that works in a way that some people don't get if they only had tuition in the classroom or just want to study the subject a lot more. So this course provides you with the opportunity to go further than you were in the subject that you want to pursue. So those are some of the reasons why you should consider buying this online course, because once you buy it, it's yours for a lifetime. For some of my videos, I will go through programming tasks. So if you want to do these yourself, I have put a Replit link below on my programming videos. So you just click on REPL, and this is what you need if you haven't signed up at all. So you just click sign up. If you've got an account, you just click log in, and once you've logged in or signed up, this is the page that will appear. So if I was to log in right now, this is the page. So this will appear. So that will be the page there. And in addition to all that, I am also a private tutor where I offer my private tutoring services specializing in ICT and computer science. And I look forward for you coming to me for lessons. Goodbye for now.